Hello, this is David William Weissner, and this is another episode of David Speaks. Today, we're going to talk about a story from my life. It might be interesting. I think it's interesting to ask anybody this question, but we're going to talk about my first time having sex with a woman, losing my virginity. Okay, and this happened when I was 18, uh, on my 18th birthday, actually, which was a fun way to celebrate it. So let me take you back there, and we'll go over the story for you. All right. So it's on my 18th birthday, and me and my friend from high school, great guy, were hanging out at this place called the Mansion, which was, as far as I know, was just some rich guy's house, and everybody came in there and just drank, and they paid him some money for beer or something. I have no idea. It was in St. George, part of Staten Island. So we were there. We were just drinking, drinking, and drinking, and drinking, getting really hammered, and we're hanging out with a girl who worked with me at the time. I was working at a catering hall in Staten Island after school and on weekends, and we'll call the girl Meryl. And she was, I was 18 that day. She was 17. She was a junior. I was a senior in high school, and we were hanging out. And she was drinking heavily. I was drinking heavily. My friend also was drinking heavily, and we eventually we left and went back to his house. Okay, we can call him Peter. Okay, and we went back to his house and just hung out in his just sitting around in his room, listening to records and drinking heavily. I know it was Jack Daniels or something. He was just drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking for my 18th birthday, and then eventually it got really late. It was like 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and Meryl said to me, or to him, she said, I better go home. My parents will get worried. So I said, don't worry, I'll take you home. I have my car there. And of course, doing something stupid at 18, which is drinking and driving, or even drinking at all, is a stupid thing to do, as I've discussed in other videos. But at 18, you know, like a lot of kids that age, I was enjoying my drinking, and especially on my 18th birthday. So took I said, all right, let's go home, Meryl. Meryl lived in some apartment buildings, maybe 15 blocks away. It was snowing out. It was very cold. I'm born on February 12th. It seems to always snow on my birthday, and it's always cold. So I said, I said, all right, I'll take you home. So she said, all right. So she got in the car. Peter left. Peter waited at his house. I was sleeping over his house that night. So he was going to wait up. So I took uh, Meryl in the car, and we started driving, and she was ripped and I was ripped. And I just said to her, I said, hey, Meryl, you're really drunk. Should I take advantage of you? And she said, do you want to? And I said, yeah. And then she jumped across the seat like a crazy woman and started making out with me. And it was pretty intense. And then we were just sitting there on Victory Boulevard in Staten Island with the snow coming down, and I had just stopped right on the road at 4:30 in the morning, and other cars there were other cars in there, and they would just go around us, and we were making out passionately right on the boulevard there. Um, and Mara was a cute girl. She had blonde hair and brown eyes, and she was very cute. Uh, and so she said, "Let's go park down the block, down at the end of Peter's block is like a guardrail because it was a dead end." I said, "All right." So we went down there, and let's see. I'll just get into it. So we went down there, and she proceeded to take down my pants and go down on me, and I was so drunk I barely could feel anything, but that was the thing to do, so we did it, and and that was I think that was the first time for that too. It probably was, but all right. So then she said, "Let's go in the back seat." So she ripped off all her clothes, she jumped in the back seat. I, of course, being a very good Boy Scout, had condoms in the glove box. I said, "Should I got a condom?" She said, "Don't worry about it. I got it covered." So I guess she had it covered. So um, I jumped in the back seat with her and took off all my clothes and we're both naked back there, and we did it. And it was my first time. I had no what the hell idea what I was doing, but she apparently did and told me what I needed to know, and everything went fine. I remember at one point I was laying down in the back seat, just looking up at the stars, and the snow was coming down, and I was so ripped. And this is my first time having sex with anybody, and I was like, "Is this really happening?" And it was pretty intense. And yeah, so that was it. And then she said, well, when we finished, put our clothes back on, got in the front seat. She took out an eyeliner or mascara. I don't know what makeup is called, but she took out this thing and wrote on a piece of paper her name, Meryl blank, and um, and her phone number. And she said, "I want to fuck you in my bedroom on my silk sheets." So okay, this was this was definitely a short thing. Anytime I wanted it, and she gave me her number, and then I drove her home, dropped her off at these apartment buildings, and said goodnight to her. Then I went back to Peter's house, and Peter was in the house, and I was just so drunk, and I was just screaming and loud, and he said, "Be quiet, be quiet." My parents are sleeping upstairs or wherever they were sleeping. So we hung out. But eventually, we both knocked out, went to sleep, and that was my 18th birthday. Okay, now then things started to happen. You would think I'd be very happy about this, and I was at the time. But then, as things started to sink in, it really it affected me in a very bad way. I started I felt this loss. I'm sure not every guy feels this way. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know, but I wanted to be with somebody special. I wanted to be with the girl I loved, who was another girl in school that I had a big crush on, who I was friends with. I wanted to be with her. I wanted it to be like my first time making out with a girl. Years before that was so special because I was in love with her, and I'm a romantic, and I wanted my first time having sex to be with someone I loved, and kind of twisted me in weird ways. I never called Meryl. I didn't see her in school. If I did, she ignored me. I ignored her, and but eventually, after a few weeks, we were working at the same time at the God, we were working the same time at the restaurant at the place, and she came up to me. She goes, "Hey, David." I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And she goes, "You hate me, don't you?" I said, "No, I don't hate you, Meryl." She goes, "No, you hate me," and I kind of did, and I don't know. I was an emotional kid, and I was very sensitive, and I did hate her, and I hated myself for blowing what should have been the greatest night of my life with someone I loved in a special romantic way, but instead it was just a drunken night in my car. And I could blame the alcohol on it, but it's a lot of pressure on kids to have sex. And even back then, you didn't want to be an 18-year-old virgin because your ego, you wanted to figure like you fit in, like you were like everyone else. You had sex, you had a good time. But I was a virgin, so I guess I'm glad I got rid of that moniker. Not that most people knew one way or another, except my real friends. But I feel bad for her because she really liked me. Even through that drunken lens of everything, she really liked me, and she was a nice girl, very pretty. I just wasn't in love with her for whatever reason, and I wanted to be special. So, and that's it. There are some lessons to learn here. Like I try to use these stories about my life to teach things. And as you know, probably from some other episodes of my show here, um, I'm very against drinking and drugs. And this is another reason. People sleep with people when they're drunk that they shouldn't or they wouldn't do normally if they were straight. I don't know what she was using as birth control. If she was using anything, if she would have got pregnant that night, it could have ruined both our lives. And on a side note, I could talk about Peter, and I wish I could give his real name because he was such a great guy. But I don't want to do this to his family. But he died about 10 years ago of an overdose of drugs. What drugs? Let's see. It was mostly like morphine derivatives, things like that. Pills. My mind is battered. I don't remember exactly what, but he was on a lot of pills and he died. And he was an alcoholic and a drunk and a drug addict. And he tried. He was in rehab on and off. And but he died. He was a great guy. That man never hurt a man in his life. Never said a bad word to anyone. And he died in his 40s because of alcohol and drugs. And I hate that stuff, man. But I won't go into too much of that tonight. Just want to tell you a little story about my life. And, I had that little paper with her name on it and number probably for 25 years in my closet. And then somehow it got thrown out. But I kept it as a keepsake. So, all in all, it was a mixed night. It was a great night of first time for me and a terrible time that I never get that back. And in the future, I made love to many women who I was madly in love with, and it was beautiful and spiritual, like you hope sex will be. But anyway, there's no real moral, I guess, to this story. Just this is David Speaks, and I'm just gonna be telling you episodes about my life, about my research into morality and spirituality and religion and all things that are important to me. And I have a degree in sociology, and I learned a lot about people. So it's going to be once a week. I've taken a few weeks off now, but I'm back on. It's going to be once a week, and I hope you enjoy my talks. Okay, have a very good night. Thank you.